my name is Kate McLaughlin. I'm a Solutions Engineer with Blackboard. Thank you all very much for being here today. We're delighted to be here to talk to you and present to you on one of Blackboard's newer products, Blackboard Ally. I'm going to run through a few slides and then I'm actually going to show you live software after that. So this is really to level set everyone, make sure we're all on the same page and talking the same language. So Blackboard is taking accessibility very seriously and taking a holistic approach as much as possible to addressing accessibility. We think about accessibility and how accessible a student's experience is all the way from the first time you reach out to a student to graduation. And every step along that path, is there something that we can do to improve that experience? Now, Ally specifically focuses on the courses, the digital course content that exists, and how we can make that content more accessible for students. Now, when we think about digital course content, there are a number of groups who face challenges as a direct result when that content is not accessible. So I'm just going to quickly run through for you some of those challenges. Now, for students have to explicitly request, this is typical, they have to explicitly request alternative formats of content to be made available to them. That process can take a while. I was at an institution a few days ago, and they told me that their general turnaround time is 2 weeks. So imagine if you're a student who can't consume a piece of content, you have to explicitly request that content be remediated, and it's going to take 2 weeks for you to get that turned around and returned to you. That puts you 2 weeks behind in every single course where you have that inaccessible experience. We also know that 40 to 60% of undergraduate students who have a disability will never disclose the fact that they have a disability. So if we're taking a reactive approach to providing content only on demand in alternative formats, we're potentially excluding a significant number of students from having an accessible course experience. Now, I'm going to talk a lot today about students who have disabilities and how we can help them, but keep in mind that when you are providing alternative formats and aligning your courses with the principles of universal design, you're improving the overall course quality and usability for every student. Every student can exercise the choice about how they consume content, so everyone stands to benefit from having a tool like Ally. For instructors, I've never met an instructor who doesn't want their course to be accessible, but what I hear most of the time is that instructors don't really have the bandwidth to go out and learn about accessibility, and nor do they have at any point in time a baseline. Where are they right now with how accessible that content is, and what should they do to improve the overall accessibility of the content? So with that lack of guidance, lack of support, it's hard for instructors to make the change and make sure that the students are having an accessible experience. The third group I'll very briefly mention are institutions. Institutions at large, it's very difficult for them to wrap their arms around and get a sense of how accessible their digital course content is across the entire ecosystem. If I ask any one of you in the room today about your institutions and how accessible your course content is, in order for you to get that information, you probably have to go and do a labor-intensive audit of several courses to get a sense of how accessible that course content is. That's very common. Institutions struggle with that. Also, that remediation process for students, that turnaround time of 2 weeks, that's very manual and can be quite costly to institutions. There's a lot of people involved with accessibility and a lot of people who care about accessibility on campus. So getting everybody to come to the table and have the same understanding about where you all stand right now is also difficult. And there's one we always have to mention, there's a risk of lawsuits. If you do have inaccessible content, all it takes is one student filing a complaint, and that opens the floodgates for more investigations across the campus. So that's where Blackboard Ally comes in. When it comes to digital course content, Ally looks and provides 3 different things, and these are the 3 things I'm going to focus on during the demonstration. The first thing it does is if I, as a faculty member, upload a PDF, for example, Ally will automatically turn that PDF into an HTML version, a Braille version, an audio version, an EPUB version, multiple different versions of the document, and it takes less than a minute for Ally to do that. That provides all students the access to those alternative formats. They never have to self-identify. They don't have to wait for that remediation process to go through. They just have access to that content. For instructors, once I upload that PDF, Ally provides them some feedback about how accessible that content is. Ally is a machine learning algorithm, so it analyzes the document to understand the structure of it. And once it understands the structure of it, it provides feedback. So it will identify for you what the problems are and give specific steps that can be taken so that you can improve the overall quality of the document and make it more accessible for your students. For the institution, Ally provides an institution-level report looking across every single course where Ally is deployed and giving you a sense of the types of content that are being leveraged and common accessibility issues that are coming up again and again. This is really helping to inform the big picture and the accessibility strategy for the community at large. So if you have faculty members who are using PDFs but rarely use Word documents, you can focus your accessibility trainings on PDFs versus Word documents. You can prioritize accordingly. So that's a little bit of background. Any questions on the background before we move into the demo and you see it in action?
What's the accuracy level?
So the accuracy level very much depends on the original format. There is, I don't think, a single person at Blackboard who would tell you that Ally is a silver bullet. It cannot be. There has to be human oversight. Generally speaking, the accuracy level is very, very high. But again, it's tied back to the original and the quality of that. So for example, if you have a scanned PDF, something from a textbook that's angled, has coffee stains on it, that is obviously less accurate than something that may be typed and has all the tags and all the headers in it. That's going to have a really high degree of accuracy. Other questions? All right, let's switch gears and I will show you Ally in action. So Ally is available to all of our customers, whether you're self-hosted, managed hosted, or on a SaaS deployment of Blackboard Learn. It's also LMS agnostic, so whether you are on Blackboard, Moodle, Moodle Rooms, or Canvas Instructor, Ally is a tool that you can choose to plug in. I'm going to show you some very basic examples from a faculty perspective first. Now, one of the most important things I think that I could tell you about Blackboard Ally is it fundamentally does not change the way that faculty upload and distribute content to students. That workflow is identical as it usually is. What does change, though, is that you get the appearance of these small gas gears. The gas gears are your indication or telling you how accessible that content is. If it's a green gas gauge pointing to the right-hand side, that means it's highly accessible. Orange in the middle means it has a medium degree of accessibility, and red pointing to the left is a low degree of accessibility. Right now, Ally is able to process lots of different types of documents. So I have a Word document, a PowerPoint, PDFs, and images, and I'll also show you some examples of scanned documents a bit later on in the presentation. So after I upload my documents, I see that I have some problems in here. If I want more information about what those problems are, all I have to do is click on the gas gear. As I click on the gas gear, a panel pops in from the right-hand side and identifies for me the #1 problem with the document. So in this case, my PDF has images in it that are missing an alternative description. Now, this isn't the only issue with the document. This is just the one that we identify as if we fix this, it's going to have the biggest impact on the overall score and the student experience. So if I click over, I can also see all of the issues. So there are several issues here, and I have the ability to receive feedback and guidance about all of those. Now, one of the things, as I mentioned earlier, instructors don't often have is the full context of why it's important to fix these accessibility issues and how to fix them. So Ally provides that information. This is part of us trying to support cultural change on campus and across institutions. So we actually provide feedback about things like what is an alternative description and the impact of using them. How does it change the experience for students who have visual impairments? After we get that level of education, Ally also provides step-by-step instructions about how to fix the problem identified. So in this case, because it's a PDF, can I get hold of the original editable version of the file? Let's assume yes. Once I have that original file, I can choose the program in which, I'm going to make my edits. So let's assume I'll make my edits in Microsoft Word. And Ally actually provides, again, those step-by-step instructions about how to go back and add alternative descriptions, including visuals and subtopics for me to follow. The instructions can also be printed if you'd rather use this in a printed version. After I followed all of these instructions, Ally provides the opportunity for me to upload a new version of the file. So I make the changes, I upload the new version, and Ally will automatically rescore that document for me. So we'll see what those new changes are. We'll see if there are any existing problems that remain. Show you a couple more examples here of how Ally works. I like to show the image because it sort of surfaces that algorithm and you can see it in action. Now this is an image of a cell with the various parts of the cell labeled. It has a 0% score because it has no alternative description associated to it. Now, one of the parts of Ally that is incredibly powerful is it has an OCR engine actually built into the software. So if there's text within an image or a scanned PDF, Ally can read that and can identify the fact that there are keywords missing. So if I type in here a completely nonsense alternative description, cat, dog, fish, really has nothing to do with the actual picture itself, Ally first checks the box. We now have an alternative description. However, Ally is also assessing the quality of that alternative description. The image contains text that is not included in the alternative description. So now when I come back in here and fix this and start including some of those keywords, we're going to see the score go up as a result of me now having those keywords reflected in the alternative description. Watch the score, it's going to go from 50% up to 59%. Now it's not 100 because I didn't include everything, I haven't got some context in there. So I can again follow those instructions about what this means and how to write a good description. You can see we've got some really good contextual examples for faculty so that they can learn on an ongoing basis about how to write good alternative descriptions. One other example I'll show you here. I have it already uploaded. It typically takes about a minute. Once you upload a file, Ally runs it, assesses it, and provides you the score. So I want to show you an example of a PDF. I'm going to show it to you from a student perspective, though, so we can see what the original looks like and how Ally translates that into alternative formats. I'm going to jump into student preview mode, and we'll go look at this example here. Now, my original document here has 2 columns. It has a varied header structure throughout, footnotes, we have flowcharts, tables, and even math formulas mixed into this document. This is a document that a screen reader would have a very hard time navigating through. So now as a student, I have the choice about how I consume this content. For every single item that Ally assesses, there are alternative formats available. What we think is really important here is this is available to every student. They do not have to self-identify to have access to these, and they get to choose the format in which is going to make the most sense for them to consume the content. So some examples here, we have an HTML version. Semantic HTML is very easy for screen readers to interact with. EPUB can be read on reading devices like Nooks. Electronic Braille, audio file. So if I actually prefer to listen to content as I'm driving instead of reading it, I have the choice to download an audio file. And a brand new addition is we're actually able to translate the documents into alternative languages as well, so students can read it in their native language. So we go ahead and download that HTML version just so you can see what that looks like. I hope this opens for me. All right, so we go from a 2-column document down to a single-column document. Tables are brought over and are now readable for the students using screen readers. And math formulas are translated into MathML, which is, again, a much more accessible language. So you can see how quickly Ally is able to do that, and students can now access and consume this content in a format that makes sense for them. Let me go back for a second, just point out a few more things from the student experience. One thing I do want to note for you, students do not see the gas gears. We're not exposing to your students how accessible or not the content is. What they do have for all of these different file types, though, as I mentioned earlier, is access to all of those different versions that Ally is instantly generating. Any questions from anyone about the student experience? Sure.
So the students will be able to select which version they want.
Yeah, they get to exercise that choice. We would never try to assume which choice they want. We have talked about potentially introducing the ability for a student to have a favorite choice, and that will be the first one that pops up for them or the first one that's made available. but we're still in very early design conversations about
that would be like something that a choice that they always choose for the system to remember it.
Exactly. Yeah. Other questions? All right. So I'm going to jump now. I'm going to log out and log back in as an admin so that I can show you the institutional report, which is the last part of the Blackboard Ally, the 3 things that we mentioned earlier. So let me just log in as my admin user so that you can see what that looks like. All right. So the institutional report right now is available through the admin panel. However, it is an LTI tool. So that means that you're going to be able to access this. You can send that LTI link out, share the secret, share the key so that anyone can access this. We're also in the process of developing a couple of additional reports. There'll be an instructor level report where they can see a summary of their entire course, as well as a department level report. So everyone inside one department can see how they're doing and how they're performing against their baseline. So what we're seeing here in this very top chart is a comparison graph. We're seeing courses that have Ally enabled and how they compare to the course when Ally is not available. So you can choose to deploy Ally on a course-by-course basis. You could do it for entire departments, or what we're seeing most often is you can deploy this tool institution-wide, so that everybody has this turned on and alternative versions are available for all students. Now, what we are able to quickly identify, and bear with me here, this is a demo system, so it's not the most accurate graph that we're showing, but you're able to see differences between courses. That green line starts to take off. The reason it takes off and differentiates from courses that don't have the alternative versions available is because alternative versions immediately make a course more accessible. It increases that score. You're giving students choices about how they consume the content. The other thing that changes is once faculty see those gas gears, they start to take action. So again, you start to see a divergence between those 2 lines. You're also able to look at the different types of content that are being leveraged. So you can see a difference between images versus PDFs versus documents, presentations, or HTML files. And this is very helpful for institutions to have this context so they know when they're doing accessibility training for faculty, where should we focus our time? Should it be on HTML pages? There's only 18 of those in my particular example. Or should we spend more time on how to make PDFs accessible? This further breaks down to focus on different accessibility issues that are occurring across my institution. So we gather all of the information from every single course about accessibility issues that are happening and provide you a summary screen. So in 100% of cases with my images do not have an alternative description. This is the most common issue for all institutions. We can see a further breakdown, even flagged for the accessibility or the severity level, so we can address the most severe things first. But if I want to see, for example, a list of all of the courses that have documents that are missing a title, I can drill down into any one of these. So once I click on that, I can see a list of every single course, the number of students that are actually enrolled in the course, the number of pieces of content inside that course, and the overall accessibility score. This is a really useful screen, and we see institutions use this when they're trying to prioritize where to resource, how to put someone behind this problem and start addressing the issues. So if you have a course that has a high number of students in it, a low number of pieces of content, and a low accessibility score, that might be a really good place to start because you're going to get the biggest return on your investment by fixing that course first. But the last thing that I will show you today is a very common use case for Office of Disability Services or anyone who is working with students who do self-identify. When those students come to you and tell you that they need an accommodation, you can actually look up the courses that that student is enrolled in, find the course and get a summary of the accessibility issues that start. Instead of having to do a manual audit, Ally can automate that process for you and make it a little bit easier for you to understand where you stand right now. Any one of these, I'll just show you one more thing. You can drill down into these again and see the specific documents that are impacted. You can open those from here and begin the remediation process. So that's a very, very quick summary of Blackboard Ally. We saw 3 different parts. From a faculty perspective, you get the gas gear with the feedback provided to you about what the problems are and how to fix the problems. For students, they get immediate access to those alternative formats. They get to choose the type of alternative format that they want to use. And then for the institution, they have that high-level report giving them insight into where accessibility issues exist. Does anyone have any questions on anything that we've covered so far? Sure.
You mentioned earlier that this is an add-on and it could be used with other systems. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Sure.
I'm wondering whether this is a tool that can also be used for, let's say, our website, or is it just for learning management systems?
Great question. So what I'm showing you today is very specific to learning management systems. However, there is an offshoot of this product, Ally for the Web, that will actually crawl public websites and identify for web developers. Do you have any accessibility issues on these websites that you are prospective students are potentially looking at and evaluating your institution for? Other questions? All right. Well, thank you all very much for your time. I'll end by showing you a very quick slide. If you're interested in learning more about Blackboard Ally, please come visit us. We'll have a couple of tables around here today so you can come and ask us more questions. But there's also a user group for Ally. We have a very active community of current customers and prospective customers who are interacting with our product management team, learning about upcoming functionality and what's currently available. Thank you very much.